What makes riding fun for me is the endless sandbox of progression. There is always a new trick to learn, a new movement, a new technique. My whips can always be a little bit more sideways. My lap times can always be dropped a little more. Well, actually, those last two can be improved quite a bit more. There's just so much you can do, and the lower the skill level, the more vast that sandbox of opportunity is. With that being said, the core to improving anything on your dirt bike is simply form. Think of the top 5 riders that come to mind. Think of some of the mind-blowing things that you've seen them do. Now I'm going to share with you something crazy. There is nothing magic about them, their bike, their gear. There's nothing in the real physical world that's different from them and their bike versus you and your bike. Maybe some slight genetical difference, and maybe the engine and suspension is tuned a little bit different, but let's be honest, none of that stuff is actually going to make that a big difference. And what's crazy to me about that realization is there is no magical force field stopping me from throwing a whip just like some of the best whippers in the world. There is no real physical reason why I couldn't throttle my bike and lean my body in that same direction and get the same outcome. Think about that for a moment. The reason that we have to put so many repetitions in to get that exact form is it takes a while for our minds to get comfortable with what we're trying to perform. Using the example of whips again, you have to first get our mind and body comfortable with the jump itself, then start getting comfortable with the idea of leaning a little sideways, a little more, and then a little more. Which is good because even though we have seen others do it and we know it's possible, we've never been sideways underneath the bike ourselves, and without any progression up to it, we probably wouldn't know what to do, and it would feel so uncomfortable that we would crash. So, by allowing our minds and bodies to get just a little bit more comfortable, just a little bit at a time, it basically keeps us from dying. The core to making you and your dirt bike do what you've always dreamed about is form. It all comes down to form. So the next question is, how do you achieve good form? The first step to getting good form is a basic understanding of what you need to do. Basic attack position, corners, rollers, jumps, and other riding basics. It's actually really easy because there's a lot of well-made videos out there that explain from head to toe the form that is needed to perform those movements and be good at it. So all you need to do is study it, get a basic understanding in your head, and then go out and practice it little by little until everything is how it should be. The key is to be willing to be uncomfortable in the short term with the right form and gaining the long-term benefits, opposed to being comfortable with the wrong form in the short term, and basically not ever being a good rider. For more advanced riding movements, there is not always going to be a good how-to video on that form required to perform the movement. That's when you have to use your brain a little and try to figure out where your body should be positioned, how your weight should be shifted, and where you should be driving that force. Then, go out and practice it until you get it and see if it works. If not, go back to the drawing board and see what needs to be adjusted. I'm actually doing this right now with one of my current goals, and it has been really intriguing trying to figure out what needs to be done to perform the movement. Then, I'm getting on the bike and going back and forth with trial and error until things start to click. When I first started riding a few years ago, I started to meet more and more riders and get invited on more and more rides. And I often found myself really struggling to keep up with these guys because I just wasn't fast enough. And the harder I tried to get faster, ironically, the slower I was. And I kept hearing, I need to work on my form. And I was like, yeah, because, lifting my elbow 2 inches is going to make a big difference. Well, it did, actually. It did make a big difference. I spent a few weeks on hand practicing form and only form, nothing but form, and my speed actually doubled without me even trying. That was the first time that I realized how important form actually is, how big of a difference it actually makes. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure as you watch clips in this video, my form is still nowhere near perfect. I've still got a lot to work on, and this bike, for example, it's not using good form right now, as you can see. Needs work. No seat here, but you get the point. Just work on form. It's good stuff.